Hello and welcome to Beaverdale Books. Thanks so much for coming out on this chilly evening. But it's not as bad as it has been. Before we begin, I have to do my little advertisements for upcoming events. Tomorrow night we have M. Wayne Clark, and he's going to talk about his new novel, A Boy on the Farm. That starts at 6:30. And then on Thursday, Ellie Rosher will share her book, Fair Game. The subtitle is Trans Athletes and the Future of Sports. So you can find all the details on our website, or you can pick up an event list, or you can sign up for our newsletter. So tonight we have Hayseed Press here. Christmas may be over, but it's still possible to enjoy a little Iowa Christmas magic. Hayseed Press and its talented storytellers are going to share from their collection of heartwarming holiday tales rooted in the spirit of the Hawkeye State. And then the authors are also going to discuss Iowa Weird Volume 1. That is the home of the annual collection about the unusual and extraordinary that you can find right here in our state, and those that might find you as well. 15 writers contributed spooky, creepy, and out-of-this-world tales for this compendium of everything weird. And we're fortunate to have four of the authors with us tonight. Marc Dickinson is an author of many stories. He received an MFA from Colorado State University and now lives in Iowa, where he teaches creative writing at DMAC. And he also coordinates the long-running reading series Celebration of Literary Arts. How long has that been going?
20-some years.
I thought so, yeah. Hayseed Press co-founder Aaron Narigon holds a Master of Arts in English Language and Literature from the University of Northern Iowa. And he's a professor of English and has taught at Hawkeye Community College since 2002. Jenny Thee works as an award-winning journalist, seventh-generation Iowa farmer, and volunteer publicist for a bustling cat rescue. And then Melinda Wichmann is a third-generation farm kid who earned a journalism degree from Iowa State University and spent 35 years living the dream in Eastern Iowa community newspapers. So join me in a warm welcome for tonight's authors.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Beaverdale Books, for that welcome, and thanks for having us. It's really great to be here. We're excited, and what better place to be than a bookstore on a cold winter night, right? So again, thank you. We're really excited to be here and talk a little bit about our collections. As was mentioned, I represent Hayseed Press. I'm one of the founders and one of the editors for it. And just want to talk a little bit about it. Founded about a year and a half ago with my brother. It was his brainchild. He was overseas and doing some other things, but wanted to get back and connected to his roots here in Iowa. And so he's also been a lifelong passionate writer and connected to writing. And he's been in the publishing industry for about 20 years now. So he just kind of put it together and decided that he really wanted to focus on his roots, which is here in Iowa, and providing an avenue for the voices and unique styles that we find here in our state. So I was on board totally. I have my own full-time job, but I was like, yes, that sounds like a great mission, and I'm willing to put some other things aside and jump on board, and it's been a really fun experience, and we're excited to give a chance for other writers to also shine, and we have 3 of them here on the stage with us today, so we're really excited. And again, thank you so much for having us. Let's see. So, like I said, we have 2 collections that we've put together. We have a couple other pieces that are available as well, but we have, as was mentioned, both Iowa Weird and Hayseed, a very special Hayseed Christmas. All the authors up here contributed to them. And so I'd like to ask you, if we can just go on the line, whoever wants to start, what inspired, if you want to start with, let's start with Iowa Weird. Let's talk about that first. What inspired your story, or your where you went with that?
My contribution that Iowa Weird was a kind of a classic axe murder story, or rather what happens years later when a pair of sisters go to investigate kind of this house that's abandoned. And I grew up kind of mystified by empty farmhouses, and I always like to imagine what maybe happened there. And I grew up not far at all from an unsolved axe murder in Boone County. And so it's totally fictional, but it was rooted in kind of my lifelong fascination with those things.
For me, I don't write any kind of like surreal or supernatural stuff at all, but I love it. I love horror. It's like one of my favorite genres to watch and to read, and I grew up on it actually. So when Nick, the co-founder, your brother, who I've known since I was 12, maybe, like we've been lifelong friends, when he said like, oh, can you write like a supernatural story? I was like, sure, this is an opportunity. I love, that's not my milieu. So it was exciting to think about what haunts Iowa, I guess. And for me, what is most haunting about Iowa, and I do feel like it's one of the weirder states out there, is the weather. And like my wife would concur with this. She has tornado dreams, nightmares every night, it feels like. She gets terrified of them, and they happen all the time. So I was like, maybe I'll write a tornado story. And so in the kind of like the vein of like Karen Russell or something, I decided to write like sentient tornadoes who are haunting these farmers, and they're trying to corral them and trying to understand them. And as a result, the tornadoes are actually doing more good than harm, but they don't know this at the time. So that's what I thought about when it comes to Iowa, because I think about our weather. It's so freakish. We have like tornadoes that like destroyed the world in like 2 seconds, and then we have blizzards and floods that are biblical, and I don't know, we just have like so much people watch the news for weather as opposed to like anything else, just to see what happens next, and it determines so much of our lives. So that's what was like inspiring me, I guess.
Yeah.
In Iowa Weird.
It's like they say with Iowa weather too, if you don't like it, wait half an hour.
Exactly.
Right? It's completely different.
I get to beg off on this one because I didn't write for Iowa Weird.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. Yeah, I also contributed a piece as well, and I based mine on the legend of the Van Meter visitors. Anybody familiar with that story? Yeah. Anybody? What's it about? You remember?
It's before my time.
Yeah.
But it's supposedly some flying creature that they saw 100 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, about 1903. It was in Van Meter, Iowa, and there's this reports from the town. It was national news at the time that there was some weird bat-like winged creature, like 8 foot tall, and it had a horn that pointed off the front of its head that emitted light, and it made this weird sound and emitted these weird smells, and it was showing up about 3 or 4 nights in a row in this town. And so that's the legend of it, and the legend that goes then that the townsfolk followed it to a old coal mine that was abandoned, and once they saw it go down and descend, they ended up dynamiting the entrance and sealing it in, supposedly forever. I came across the legend. I watch like weird shows. There's supposedly there people who do documentaries about supernatural things, and so one episode I saw covered the Van Meter visitor, and I'd never heard of it before. So I think I found out first about 2020, but it always stuck with me that there's this strange legend in Iowa that never has been really explored or much known about. It's before anybody had photographs or phones where we could snap something real quick. So it's interesting how a legend can develop. The other side of the story is people say that it's just the townsfolk, like the town was struggling at that time, as many small Iowa towns did at the turn of the century, and that it was more of a attention getter. They were trying to get publicity to the town, maybe to bring people. If you remember the Cardiff Giant it's in Fort Dodge. If you go, it was anyway. When I was a kid, we had the Fort Dodge Museum there, and they had a likeness of the Cardiff Giant, which is supposedly like this 12-foot man that was preserved. And so at the time, they claimed it was real, and people would travel all over to go and visit this. It ended up being something carved. It was fake. They had made it and then turned it off as that. So it was just a money-making scheme. So they say maybe that was possibly the case with the Van Meter visitor as well. So that's the other side of the legend. But I went with the idea of what if it was real? What would that thing be? And that's where I created my story. Yeah.
Did they really, truly dynamite it?
They did, yeah.
That's for real.
Yeah, that was for real. Yep, they did. Yep, they were that concerned about it, or covering up the legend, as it were. Yep, but absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, every incident that I read about, everybody shot at the creature. That was like the other thing that stood out to me. It's like every time somebody saw it, the first instinct was to shoot at it. Right, well, there was really that. And, yeah, in fact, everybody had guns. Yeah, right. The doctor woke up from his nap and was like, "Oh, there's something out my window," and so he grabbed his pistol and ran out the door. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it was I would say it was the Wild West, but it was definitely frontier town at that time, right? Everything was really developing and growing and changing rapidly. Yeah. All right. What do you hope people take? Oh, let's go with Christmas now. Yeah, the Hayseed Christmas. Since Melinda, you didn't get to go in the last one, why don't you go next?
Yeah, when Nick asked me to write a Christmas story, and the only criteria were it was set in Iowa, it was set at Christmas, and it was supposed to have a happy ending. Now the happy endings were kind of open for
interpretation.
In that volume, but mine was very traditional. I kind of wrote a Hallmark Christmas story. I threw together a whole bunch of things from my own life and came up with a farm kid kind of getting back to her own roots. She's having a really lousy Christmas. She's having a lousy life. And she's not having the traditional Christmas she's always had, and she misses that. But she kind of ends up in the right place at the right time to meet the right guy. And he's not having the world's best Christmas either. And they end up stuck together in a farmhouse full of junk on Christmas Eve during a blizzard so that he can be there to do his chores in the morning. And I think it hit on about all the Iowa farmer tropes that you could ask for.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love it, Lisa. Definitely.
So my Christmas story is about an older gentleman in a nursing home. And he has kind of a surprise reunion with an estranged family member. And it's kind of about them trying to work out some past wrongs and bring their family back together. And for me, like, I spent a lot of my time in nursing homes through my life. I was really close to my great-grandparents and great-aunts and uncles. So it was very familiar territory to me. And he was, my character was an old farmer, and I grew up on a farm, and that's kind of my territory too. And I was also going for Hallmark. And that was just a joy to write, because the scary was a stretch for me. I've never written anything scary, but I could do a Hallmark Christmas story. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
For my Christmas story, Nick gave the instructions of it has to have be in Iowa and it has to have a happy ending, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, that's not my jam. But I was looking at I published a collection last year, and it's all Iowa related stories, and so I was like, oh, maybe there's something. I do have a story that took place in Iowa during that time, and it took place on Christmas Eve, and so I asked Nick, I'm like, would this work? And he was like, yeah, it's Christmas, it's Iowa, we might need to cut down on some things. And I was like, I'm down, whatever you want me to do. And I was like, he's like, so the sex scene might have to go. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, probably the suicide stuff was probably good too. And then he's like, yeah, and the swearing and the drugs and it sounds it's actually a very lovely story. But there's a dark past to it, so I was like, okay. And actually, and it sounds like I was talking to one of my colleagues at DMAC, and he's like, you cut it down for this person, you can't cut your art. And I was like, I'm okay with it, but it actually works a lot better in some ways, because cutting out all the darkness, which I don't need to get off track here, but for the collection, it makes sense that I was writing in. but for just a standalone piece, cutting out all the darkness made it actually much lovelier, and it still held water, which made me very proud. I'm like, okay, this story still works. And then the only thing was like, the happy ending was a bit of a struggle, and I gave it to my wife, and she's like, this is like the saddest thing. I'm like, I can't wait. But it's actually, I mean, it's about a man who's like going through, he's like, he has like crime trouble, he knows he's going to prison, and so he has like this bonding moment with his son at the end, and he's sledding with his son and like kind of saying goodbye to him, but it's also like a connection. So I thought it was quite nice. So I remember Nick in his newsletter, I guess for Hayseed, was like, authors have a very different interpretation of what a happy ending is. I really appreciate that remark because it's very ambiguous.
It is indeed. Yeah, right. All right, you can hold on to that. All right, I'll talk about mine real fast too. I did I also did just a really short piece for the Hayseed Christmas collection. Mine was called the Legend of the Carroll County Christmas Changeling. I gotta make sure I got that right. And so my brother kind of tasked me after seeing the collection and what people had submitted that we needed something maybe a little magical. We had a lot of Christmas realism, and that was great. Everybody did that really well, but we were looking for kind of a different tone or tenor. And so he said, do something with Santa Claus. And so I was thinking about that, and I didn't want to write about Santa as a character himself because he's kind of a legend himself, and it's hard to encapsulate that, and I feel in a way that is authentic. And so I was kind of throwing my ideas around. I'm a big J.R. Tolkien fan, and so I was thinking of fairy tales and folklore and things like that, and kind of grasping for maybe I could make an elf work in some way. And I knew the story of a changeling, and so that's a human that's been changed out for an elf baby or something like that. And so there's different fairy tales and modern things that would play with that trope. Even the movie Elf kind of plays with that, right? If you think about that, it's kind of a reverse changeling, right? Because he goes into the elf land, right? And that is, filled with silliness. And anyway, I looked further into the legend of the changeling because I wanted to find out where it came from and what it meant. And it was actually a very dark path, finding out where that came from. So Northern European, this legend is not a fairy tale. Fairy tales are like lighthearted for kids, right? Legends are like stories for adults. They're supposed to have a lesson in them. And this was the story of the changeling is about basically how they that's totally the wrong way to say that. How special needs children were treated in the Dark Ages, basically. And so it was a story that gave struggling, peasant parents license to go as far as infanticide with their special needs children. And so the legend itself is a very, very, kind of like I said, has that dark side to it. There was no resources, there was no homes, there was no other avenue other than that for them. So it's kind of sad. But a couple things had to happen. You had to have community approval before these things could happen, and so that usually meant the people around you would say yes, okay, it's understandable. And then also either the Lord or your religious community as well usually had to give approval. And I read this from an essay from a man named D.L. Ashleman, and he mentioned even Martin Luther of Protestant fame, if you will, was a proponent of this solution for changelings. He saw them as dark beings or evil, like a devil or satanic influenced, and so he even wrote and expounded for that. So this took me way past Christmas when I was reading about this, right? So I had to try to bring that back. And so what I thought I'd do was try to resurrect that legend. It was used for dark purposes before, and so I thought, what if we show how we do that now, right? Like how this culture and how we are with special needs people now. And so I repurposed the legend for that. I said it 100 years ago or so because I wanted to show that transition. There's another person that did this. They wrote, I can't remember her name now. She was a German author. But she wrote in her story. It's called the Christmas Changeling, I believe. So the father is the one that continues like the old practices, the things that are. It's basically not nice, evil to these young children, and the mom is the one that kind of protects them. And then what happens is on Christmas, the I think it was a troll woman brings back their baby, and it would have been that whatever they did to her baby, the changeling, was going to happen to theirs in the fairy realm. So it was good that the mother protected that troll child. And so that was kind of like the seminal transition away from that belief. I mean, people were getting arrested for mistreating, abusing, and killing children up into the late 1800s, especially in rural areas of Northern Europe. So this is something that continued for quite a while. And so that story was really, she won the Pulitzer for it, or not Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize for that piece. But when I read that, I was like, let's bring the father into a positive role as well, not leave him out in the dark. So when I repurposed it, I included him as, he wasn't the answer, but he was part. He wasn't to the detriment of the being as well. So that's what I tried to do. It's a real short piece, three pages, but I tried to do a lot with it. So legend stories are generally pretty short.
It's a Christmas story?
It's a Christmas story, yeah, right. It brings it back into a happy ending, actually, believe it or not. Like I said, I resurrected the story. I tried to repurpose it so it doesn't end, with tragedy.
I mean, I was thinking about
Comes
your
close.
story too. You're like thinking like, oh, I'm going for the Hallmark ending. I'm like, but your story is like your character's going for 20 pages of like the worst time of her life. At the end, it works out kind of maybe. Yeah. But like, it's still like rife with darkness.
The character, she lost her job, her boyfriend dumped her, she pretty much got fired in disgrace. Her family, who used to celebrate a big Christmas gathering together, all decided to go visit other relatives or go on cruises or things that she was not really invited to be a part of, so she's just floating alone and she's not happy. And one of her sisters decides that since she has nothing better to do with her life, she can go clean out a dead relative's house in another part of the state over Christmas alone. And it was kind of a snowball of how can this get worse. And then the farmer, who is the tenant on this farm, kind of shows her that maybe life isn't as bad as she thinks it is, and maybe she needs to stop worrying about getting a new job and going back into broadcast journalism, which was kind of eating her alive. And it gives her a chance to stop and kind of pivot and rethink her life.
Well, and I'll say, even though I called mine a Hallmark story, the main character, Melvin, he's basically been put in a nursing home and forgotten by his family. And he is trying his best to come across, like, what's he called? Scrooge McPhee is his nickname in the nursing home. But he's one of those rough around the edges old men who's just very tender inside. And so it's a bittersweet story, I would say.
Yeah, like totally alienated from his family and estranged. And I was thinking about like Christmas movies. We did like something like this a few weeks ago at Dog Ear up in Ames, and we were talking about Christmas movies. And I feel like the Christmas movie genre is so bizarre because you think it's like all happy and rainbows or whatever, but like the best one, I mean, like the most iconic one is It's a Wonderful Life, which is such a misleading title. It's like 2 hours of suicide ideation and like the worst, like all regrets. And, yeah, it's like 2 hours of just like heartache, and at the end, you know, the iconic thing, let's do it right down the road, is like uplifting only because of 2 hours of like earning that moment. So I feel like the Christmas stories in the book, as well as, you know, in general, is like there's like a lot of darkness that leads to the hope at the end, you know. So
yeah, right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Right. Sometimes the happy ending has to be earned, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what do you hope people take away from your stories? Either one, all of them together. Like when you have them read, what are you hoping? What
Go for it.
Personally, like the reason that I really enjoy book collections, I would just escape into them. Like I would catch myself staying up way past my bedtime, just wanting to read more and more. And I feel like just the times that we live in, if we as writers can offer that to readers, that's huge. So I hope I think individually people will take away what they will, but just that you just dive in and you get lost in a good story is what I hope for.
I guess like I've been thinking about like the Iowa Weird story, which is like a little more fresher on the line because I just wrote it just fall for the collection. You know, I don't know. It's just like I have a problem, I guess. Like I have to like I love horror stories, but I love horror stories that are just fun and like the bloodshed is great. But like I also I love horror stories that usually have like good horror stories are always doing something more, right? It's like you can only tell this metaphor through a horror story to make sense. And so I mean, mine's a feeble attempt. I'm not trying to like compare myself to the greats, but like. You know, I wrote this tornado story, and as I was writing it, I was like, oh, there's like all these like, I don't know, I hate to get political here, but like there's always like immigration themes that start coming in, where it's like all these outsiders are coming in, and they're taking our land, they're taking our job, and there's a fear and paranoia about how we keep these guys in, like can we fence them out, and then at a certain point, you know, we start seeing like actually they're doing all the good work that is invisible that we see as a threat is actually like an ally. And so that was didn't start out that way by any means, but like at a certain point I started thinking like, okay, there's something like bigger going on here maybe, so it's not just fun tornadoes and farmers fighting each other in the field, which it is. I think there's that too, but there's like this kind of, it's told from like the first person plural, like we are doing this, this community is trying to fight as well as like keep together. And so as Nick described, as like an existential issue that this community is going through. So besides like just like a fun romp, hopefully there's like a little bit of an undercurrent there too. So.
I think with the Christmas collection, and it did come across that way, you know, everybody wants maybe the Christmas of their childhood, whether that was an accurate memory or not. Everybody wants the Norman Rockwell Christmas, where the whole family is there and everybody's talking to each other and nobody's divorced and nobody didn't come because they were mad and they got their feelings hurt, and everybody has money to put presents under the tree and a wonderful meal on the table. And for a lot of people, it's really hard to assemble all of those parts into one holiday. So I think my story personally, and all the stories in the book, I think kind of hit on Christmas doesn't have to look like a Hallmark movie with the candlelit streets and the falling snow and everybody's happy and the town all gets along and the economy is wonderful. You know, it can look like disappointment, and it can look like hurt and loss, and maybe saying you're sorry and reconnecting with family. So I think if anything, I kind of hope the whole collection just gave people permission to make Christmas what they want it to be, and it doesn't have to meet a stereotype or the very commercial Christmases where everybody gets sparkly packages and everybody's happy all the time.
Absolutely, well put. Like, probably time for one more question or one more comment here. So, what do you think makes Iowa worth writing about?
It's the only thing I know. It's very easy for me to write about Iowa and Iowa people because I've spent my entire life in this state and experiencing different elements of the state, different parts of the economy, different parts of the education system, different small town businesses. It doesn't make me an expert on any of it, but I could not write a story set in Colorado or in Maine. So I write Iowa because, well, I wouldn't say it's easy because it's not, but it comes more naturally, and we're not just flyover country. And I'd like people to realize that, but if they don't, that's okay too. They can just keep flying.
We'll have our fun.
I think for me in both of my stories and just in general, I love like the outdoors setting that we have here. I find farm fields to be beautiful. I'm someone who's outside just as much as I possibly can be. So in both of my stories, there's a lot of elements of like descriptions of what is around the character as far as the natural elements, and that's something I think I couldn't write a story set in mountains or beachside as much as I think those are beautiful too. Like this is the outdoors here is home to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I could go on a lot about this because I've thought about Iowa. I'm an Iowa writer, and I've learned to write about Iowa just because when I started off writing, I wanted to write about anything but Iowa, right? Because I thought like, oh, we're the boring state, so I want to write about Colorado and the beaches, or New York City, or whatever. But I realized they were very inauthentic, and they were just versions of the Iowa that I know. Like I'm writing Chicago, but I'm writing Des Moines. I mean, like, so it was kind of a fraud to try to deny who you are, and also think that your stories are boring just because of where you live, and also to not embrace your backyard, you know. So I love the title of the first collection in particular, Iowa Weird, just because I mentioned earlier that I think Iowa is a very weird state, and we have to unearth it sometimes. The flyover country thinks we're homogenized and we're all, you know, I mean, I have mixed feelings about Iowa, right? Like I love, like all hometowns, you love it, you hate it, but what you hate, you also love, and it's a complicated relationship with your hometown. But I guess like the teacher in me, I think about what I teach my students all the time who want to write about anything but Iowa. I tell them to, you know, I give an example, just like as an exercise. I'm like, who here has been like the Iowa State Fair? And I was like, oh, I love the Iowa State Fair. I'm like, Iowa State Fair is the weirdest thing ever. Like, to somebody outside of Iowa, they come in here and it's like a David Lynch movie. I mean, it's like the weirdest thing where you're just like, you're worshiping butter cows, and you are you're doing all these, you know, like East Side Night is like this like political thing about class, and I don't know. There's a lot of complicated things that are happening day to day in Iowa, and to ignore it would be kind of a disservice. So yeah, I love Iowa, and I love writing about Iowa, and I have finally, after 40 years, like have come to come to embrace it for sure. 100%, yeah. And I try to embrace the surrealness that like we live in every day.
Yeah, definitely. I see it as unplumbed depths, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's so much here to explore and to uncover, and we're just beginning, right?
Right.
Yeah. What all do you have coming up? Anything you're working on right now?
I'm happy to announce the first time I got together with this bunch, I was waiting and not breathing, and I had all my fingers and toes crossed. My first novel was released in mid-December.
Oh, congratulations.
So that was a huge project and a learning curve, and I know why published authors drink. So yeah, I'm working on my second one now.
Well, my New Year's resolution was this is the year that I write a novel, and I say that to a lot of people so that I have to like hold myself to it. But my day job is also writing. I'm a reporter in Indianola, so like I've got deadlines tomorrow to get back to. I'm also a writer for a cat rescue, so I do like cat bios and their newsletter, and so I'm just surrounded with writing. And that's exactly how I like it.
For me, like I juggle different parts of the literary life, which I love. Like I love that everybody's out here tonight. I think the writing community is a huge part of the tradition, and so like as Jan mentioned, I do a literary series, and we collaborate with Here Are the Books. We have several readings coming up. Check out the website and different features in the town, and that's where I get a lot of my joy is just being a part of the community. Knowing that it's not just a page that you're in front of, but like people behind it. And as for the writing itself, yeah, I'm working on like a novel. We'll see how that goes. It takes place in Iowa. And I'm working on several short stories. And as I just mentioned in like the previous, you know, like there's darkness in a lot of the stories that I wrote from my previous collection, which I am proud of, but I'm also like waiting to get away from. So I'm writing a lot funnier stuff. You know, I feel like I do have a sense of humor, and I feel like there's a lightness to Iowa too. So I've been embracing a lot of short stories that are kind of embracing that weirdness. That is a lot more surreal and fun to write, as opposed to just doom and gloom or whatever.
Right, yeah, excellent, yeah. And we hope that you all will contribute again to us with the collections coming out of this upcoming year. Yeah, excellent, perfect, all right. Let's see, what was the name of your novel that's coming out for everybody? Or that is out, I'm sorry.
It's out. How
There it is.
There
How
it is.
to Live with a Ghost.
Yes.
There you go.
Wow.
Just that you're the books.
I have to ask you, do you read Grady Hendrix?
I don't. And now I'm
Well,
here-
you should.
Okay.
I should not have.
Tell me more. Like,
Yeah, explain. Yeah, write the name down.
The year that I was cleaning out my parents' house, I was in a bookstore and I stumbled across a Grady Hendrix book, and he writes horror. And the title of the book was How to Sell a Haunted House. And Carrie's nodding. Yeah. And it is about a woman who goes back to her hometown to clean out her parents' house. And that was just not a good idea.
It's too close to home.
It really was. And I was driving, my folks' house was quite a distance, so I was driving down there every weekend alone to clean out the house and get rid of everything. And I'm reading this book at the same time, and the day that I walked in and all my childhood toys were lined up across the end of my bed, and I thought, yeah, I left them here. I left them here the last time. They were just like this. It's fine. It's fine. But anyway, that's kind of where I pulled the title from my novel. It was the title that caught me. It was How to Sell a Haunted House. And I just tossed the words around and came up with How to Live with a Ghost. And my book is not nearly as scary as that other one. I have not read anything of his since. I've got some on my Audible wait list. You know, when I get out of therapy for this.
Thank you so much. I think we have some time for some questions. If anybody has any out there, Q&A.
Did you take submissions?
We do, yeah, absolutely, yeah. We have a website, hayseedpress.com, and we can be reached there. And if you have ideas or things.
Well, I got one that was published in a literary magazine.
Oh, wonderful.
And I've got 2 ghost stories
Okay.
that
Oh.
took first and second place at a writers' conference.
Oh,
So,
amazing! Yeah, please do contact us. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. We're looking for more for the upcoming fall submission, or fall version of this. I'm sorry, second version of Iowa coming out in the fall. I'm trying to say the words.
one of my favorite authors was Poe when I was a kid.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you guys have like more stuff coming out like soon?
We do. We have a couple things in the works right now. Nick actually has his novel. I think he's decided to publish with Hayseed Press, so that'd be probably in another month, 2 months. I think he's in time for the book fair down here.
Okay.
And then we also have a graphic novel that we're working on right now with somebody that Nick knows. Yeah, so it's called Drunken Onion. It'll be out, I think, in June. And it's a father-son duo. So the father wrote it, and then the son drew the pictures, the illustrations for it. So yeah, it's really clever. It's really fun. It's a good romp. So we're doing a little crowdfunding to get that one off the ground. So it's going to take a little more than the collection. Yeah. So that's a whole other adventure that we're kind of embarking on, but we're looking about June for that. Yeah. And then another Iowa Weird should be out in time for about September, and then we'll probably do another Christmas collection as well. So we're looking at putting those together in the summer. So that'll be a nice project. I think so, yeah. I've talked to Nick about this, but yeah, we're still in preliminary talks. So.
Sure.
The first one was like, anybody got stuff? So we're definitely interested, yeah, for sure. One other collection that is just in the rudimentary stages. We'd like to do women in Iowa, so a collection of women authors, and then also like essays about famous or interesting women from Iowa. So I was hoping to get that one off by Mother's Day, but I think we're gonna maybe there'll be another cycle before we get there. Yeah, but that's in the works as well. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
So, Melinda, you mentioned you have your second book in the works.
Yes.
And since I've known you for, 25, 30 years now, will we see more dogs in your second book?
You will see so many dogs in the second book. It is a cozy mystery set in a kennel club with a murder at an obedience trial.
I can just see it now.
Surprised there aren't more.
Yeah.
Yes, and it kind of takes a dive into literally the subculture that is people who train and show dogs professionally.
So since you had Raider in your current book, are you going to have Banner or Phoenix or Jamie, any of the other names that we know so well?
I don't think so. The Raider in Ghost is based on Phoenix.
The Maligator.
The my Malinois. And my current Australian Shepherd Raider is named after the Raider in the book. So he's kind of connected. That whole circle got very confusing, but I really liked that name.
How do you write cat biographies? Give us, tell us more.
So this past year I did 130 some.
What?
Yeah, we are busy. I missed you. So we're worldwide, and we've only been in existence for 9 years, but we have spayed or neutered more than 2,000 cats just in Warren County.
Wow.
Yeah. It's my love. And I can't foster because my husband and I have a very angry elderly cat. But so to write a bio, I send a little Q&A to our fosters and ask some pertinent questions, and they come up with really good cat names, and so it's fun to work on some themes. We've had like a Walking Dead litter. I'm really pushing for like an Outlander litter. We'll see about that. But yeah, it's actually very relaxing and cathartic after like newspaper deadlines to like do a couple cat bios in the evening. So Whiskers TNR of Warren County. If you want to check us out.
What's your favorite cat name?
Oh goodness. My husband's in the audience. Eric is a good one.
Probably Eddie.
Well, that was hard. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Tell him why Eddie.
What?
Why did you name him Eddie?
Well, after Eddie Vedder. No, we've had some really fun. That's really hard to think of my favorite name. But good, that's a really good question.
I noticed that there's kind of almost this dualism that popped up where you're like, all right, if I'm going to write a happy story, let's get it to be a bummer. So there's something to climb out of, right? And y'all didn't go into necessarily as much depth about where your weird stories came from, but it seems like there's almost this normalcy that has to be broken. So I'm kind of curious if you wanted to talk about, I'm a ridiculously self-conscious writer. Like, I'm so weary of writing a particular kind of story. So if you had any anxiety or any idea of like, all right, to make, because you both mentioned like Hallmark movies, but then almost immediately undercut that with like, yeah, but it's like the darkest crap you've ever heard until, you know. So just that idea of, do you consciously go in saying, all right, if I'm going to write the darkness, I need to bring the light, or if I'm going to write the lightness, I need to bring the dark. Like, how cognizant of you are of kind of dealing with that balance, or what?
That's another good question. Like, I don't actually like Hallmark movies. I'll just put that. So I kind of wrote a Hallmark story, but yeah, like you said, you got to start somewhere, because if it begins happy, where are you going to go from there? And that's not what life is either. Like, if we all had sunshine and roses, like, I wouldn't appreciate them, right? And I'm also a very, like, a self-critical writer, and so, like, I just want everything to be realistic, but if you look to your own life and the people around you, a lot of times you can find inspiration. Like, right now we're going through Alzheimer's with someone in my family, so I was writing what I know every day right now, and that's a very bittersweet kind of thing to go through as a family.
Yeah, I called my story a Hallmark story also, but I didn't want it to be that saccharine sugar overload where it's all the beautiful people wearing all the beautiful clothes and living in beautiful homes where everything is manicured, and I wanted it, and I kind of wanted it to be an Iowa farm story, with snow and mud
and that's like an amazing question, and I'm not quite sure what the process is, but I even think about, like, for like even the horror stories, right? Like, it feels like you have to begin in darkness, and I feel like I hate horror films that begin in darkness and then just descend into it's the hellish. You know, like, there's no light, right? And so I feel like even the best horror films are actually, a lot of the horror films I love, they have like a lot more lightness than they do darkness. I'm just like, off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Get Out, right? Like a few years ago. It's like hilarious, and it's all taking place in daylight, and there's moments of darkness that count only because like there's so much daylight, right? And there's so much light. I think the opposite works in the Christmas story, right? Where it's like, I want to write something about hope, but hope is not something that is entitled. It's something that's earned, and so you have to go through like the trenches and stuff. But in terms of process, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Like, you're self-conscious about it too, but like I don't know if I ever have like a plan necessarily about how I go about reaching those plateaus, right? How do you go about it?
Oh, I'm a nut, but you'd mentioned like Capra, right? And like It's a Wonderful Life, and I thought of Dickens.
Right.
And it's like Scrooge actually watches Tiny Tim dying. Yes. It's like, it's not.
It's all ghosts.
Like, the Muppets did an amazing job with it, but it's not like traditional kid stuff. And so that idea of like changeling stuff. I mean, even in Shakespeare, it was strange, right. You know. And so this idea of, I love the answers. I love, like, not to try and bring it full circle, but you both talk about Iowa and like Iowa farms. And it's like that idea of like, yeah, I appreciate the sunshine and like a nice fire because it was 12 degrees below and I was up for 16 hours because something was going, you know. So just that idea of balancing them, but yeah, I'm almost incapable of having a plan.
Right.
So.
But even like, I love you thinking about Capra. Capra's really not, it's like sunshine and rainbows, and he's not at all actually. But I didn't think about like the most like lovely Christmas movie, like Home Alone. Like, that could be a horror movie. Like,
yeah.
Like a kid left alone, getting plagued by robbers who want to murder and eat his fingers, and it's just like they have this lightness to it because it's like a John Hughes or whatever. But it's like rife with darkness, and it could go bad like any time for Kevin. And luckily, there's like he foils them. But even at the end of Home Alone, oh my God, I'm just like riffing here, I guess. But even at the end of Home Alone, it's like it situates itself in like, oh, this poor man who's estranged from his father, and his kids hate him, and they have like a momentary hug, who maybe works out, I guess. And it's like, ouch, right? Like, so you can think like Christmas movies are, even like on the surface, I feel like they're like a light, but they're actually like what makes them count. What makes them classics are like the endings. So.
And I would say, also to address your question in terms of self-consciousness, I think definitely I feel that way too. And what we had here with these collections was a really good community of writers that helped each other. I know, especially with the Hayseed Christmas, there was drafts being passed around and people gave comments. And so it was a chance to explore things we were uncomfortable with in a safe space. And so I thought that was a really nice, unexpected positive.
100%.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really awesome. Like I love the community that you're starting here, right? Like Iowa writers who, I don't know, maybe I'm getting we all here, but like, like there's like, Iowa writers that are well known because we have like a literary tradition here, right? But like I love that you're like seeking out writers who are there and giving them a voice and a community, and it's been like a really fun experience.
Yeah, that's the goal, definitely. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it. We'll have a chance here for some sign. Oh, I hit the thing again. It's like a drum beat here. We'll have some copies available, and we'll be willing to sign them for you on your way out. Thanks so much for coming out and braving the cold. Really appreciate it. Thank you.